Jacob,
Perfect.
welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to chat with you. We've had a couple of good conversations already, but I want to start with your life in the RV. What was that like?
Yeah, I guess I lived in an RV for a couple of years. It's a little weird.
But I feel like that's like the trendy thing. Like a lot of people are doing it, you know.
But let me say this: we did it before it was cool.
Okay.
This was prior to
pioneers.
lockdowns and everybody wanting to get out the house. Like
Yeah.
this was 2018 when it was just starting to ramp up. Yeah, pioneers. I like that term. No, I mean, I got to rewind all the way to like getting into the RV.
Cool.
Because like getting into it was the reason we did all the things we did. So if you rewind to like 2016, I'd finally gotten a job in sales. I had worked my way up through IT. I was a contractor over at Microsoft for a long time. We're from Washington State. And so, they have Microsoft's headquarters there, and we were contracted into that. And I was just kind of floundering and trying to like find my place. And then eventually I got into sales, and sales was great and a fantastic job. But it said, oh, we require a little bit of travel. Well, that little bit of travel turned into a lot of travel. And then I became an account executive and managed 5 different states. And so now I was traveling a massive, massive amount. And so at the same time, we had kids out. So we had a kid who was it was 5, 3, and like newborn. And that's when I got that promotion to account executive. And all of a sudden I was gone Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. To the airport. And then I came back basically Thursday night at 10 p.m. And so my wife was basically a single mom.
Yeah.
And I was in high pressure sales. I didn't understand this. I like to figure it out, techie stuff. Let me come up with solutions.
Yeah.
I had done it at Microsoft at a high level. So I'm like, cool, I can go do this for T-Mobile and Boeing and for all these like big companies in the Northwest. And my clients loved that. But as soon as I became the sales guy, not the sales engineer, all of a sudden it was like numbers, weekly numbers, like just massive pressure from the executive team. And I wasn't quite used to that. So I was learning outside sales and high level, sales. At the same time, I was traveling a ton, and it basically just led to like a mental breakdown to the point where I got home, and one time I walked in the door, didn't say a word. I just laid on the floor and stared at the ceiling for like 3 hours straight. Like kids jumping all over me type of thing. I was literally unresponsive.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, okay, kids, let's go to bed. Like daddy's, tired or whatever. And then we were just like, this isn't working. Like, what do we do? And I guess I could have got a different job, but there was a bunch of other factors going on that was like, we were so unsettled, and we're like, what are we doing? Yeah. And at the same time, we had read this website. There was this blog. We were kind of following this weekly blog back when blogs were cool. That's how old I am. Back when you read blogs and not social media. But they were documenting their journey, and they took their kids on a 1-year RV trip. Because for him, he was like, my daughters are almost teenagers. I really want to spend this time with them. And I was like, man, it would be so cool if we could just like disappear for a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way. Like, we can't do that. Like, you need to be financially independent. You got to have millions of bucks or all this passive income. And we weren't there. I was making great money, but I had to go to that job to make it happen. And after the mental breakdown, it was like, okay, we really got to figure something out. And I can't remember exactly what sparked it, but I got to the point where basically like I was home one night. My wife was just like in the shower or something. And I like kicked in the door of the bathroom, and she was just like, wait, what are you doing? And I'm like, honey, we're gone. 12 months, we're out of here. I'm quitting. Shut the door. She was like, wait, hold on. Like, hold on a second.
Was she working at that time, or was she?
No. So my wife's been a stay-at-home mom for almost 13 years now. 12 and a half years. So now that was it. And I was like, and she was like, okay, like she's a crazy person that would love to just like, travel the world and never quit type of thing. And so she was like, cool, let's do it. I don't care. Throw it all away. And she was ready, but she's like, how are we going to do that?
Afford all that. Yeah.
How's that possible? And so what that came up with was, I was like, I was trying to figure it out too. And I was like, well, I don't really want to, we didn't have a ton in savings necessarily. We had a good sized emergency fund, but I'm like, that can't get us a year. And after the mental breakdown, I just had some clarity. And then I ran a bunch of numbers. I was like, wait a minute. We've been diligently investing for about 11 years. And I realized we had broken the 6-figure mark in our investment portfolio. And she doesn't mind me sharing that. Like we're not going to show you every little detail, but like that's a big part of our story. It's like once I figured that out and I said, whoa, if I don't put another penny in the stock market, by the time we're retirement age, like we'll have the millions we need to retire. Like it's already going to be there because we laid this financial foundation.
Yeah.
As soon as I like ran that, and I ran that equation like 3 times, like, wait a minute, is this real? Is this real? And I ran it and I'm like, holy crap, we can actually be done. And so that basically unlocked the ability to go, let's sell the house and just use the home equity. Let's take a year off. It doesn't matter. Like it literally didn't matter at that point. And so that's what we did. And she said, not 12 months. How about on our 10-year wedding anniversary? You got 7 months. Let's go. And so we had unfinished house. So we were in the middle of remodeling. So we had to finish the remodel, had to buy an RV, had to remodel the RV, discovered mold in the RV, had to repair all of that stuff. And then get everything roadworthy. We had to get a vehicle that could tow the thing. And oh, by the way, we had 3 kids and I was still traveling. It was
You're still working at that point?
Absolutely. So it was up until a month before we left.
Okay.
So on July 7th, I put in my, or whatever was prior to that. July 7th was my last day.
Okay.
And then we left on August 17th.
Okay.
And so it was insane. But we were so committed. As soon as the idea was, wait, we can actually do this, there was no question of, are you sure? It was just when.
Yeah.
How fast can we get to this?
So actually doing it meant like, okay, our retirement is set. Like I can leave this job. And now I just got to figure out how to support the family for that time period, 12 months, whatever it is.
Yep. Yeah. So we decided to do 1 year on the road. We had bought our house in 2010 in Seattle. And so we sold it in 2018 and did well, obviously. Looking back, man, that would have been cool to hang on to that. But it unlocked this level of freedom for us in this adventure. And so, so we had good equity. We'd have enough to travel for a year and then come back and probably get back into the market. And 2.5 years later, we finally stopped traveling. And that's just kind of how it works. Because as soon as you get out there and taste some of that freedom, you're like, how do I ever go back to what normal is? It was crazy. Like we hit our first national park. From Washington State, we went east and then went over to Montana. We did 8 days at Yellowstone and it just changed everything. Like we had all these plans and we had a big map. We're like, we're going to do all this stuff. We rerouted everything to just hit every possible national park out there because it just changed us like on a soul level. It was crazy. And so all of that big intro to answer your original question is what was it like living in a 300 square foot RV with a family of 5? It was honestly no big deal, which was insane to think about because a lot of people are like we ran into a lot of people on the road. It was just 2 people and they're like, oh yeah, we got a 45-foot bus because we can't be in cramped quarters. And we're like, oh, well, we got a smaller RV than you and you got 5 people. The key is that the RV is literally just a vehicle to freedom, figuratively and literally. It opened up the ability to explore. And so it wasn't about the RV itself. It was about getting there to whatever destination we wanted to get to and then getting outside. So we lived like basically outside. The kids, as soon as we got somewhere, get out, go play in the dirt, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like they just go touch grass, get outside.
Right.
And then we planned all of our days around like, let's go hike, let's go see this thing, let's visit. And then we had family all over the country. So we got to connect with some family that we didn't see. But the logistics of the actual RV it's a big hallway. The kitchen and dining room had like a slide out thing so we could actually, function there. But yeah, we stepped over each other. There was a master bedroom with the door like up front, and then the kids had a bunk room in the back. Yeah. But we sold 90% of everything we owned, put a small amount in storage, and we never felt lacking, which sounds crazy because I know that people are like, man, if I had a family of 5, 2,500 square feet doesn't seem big enough.
Right.
And how do we fill our stuff? We need a 2-car garage and a storage unit. And it's like, I get it. But as soon as like you embrace that minimalism and realize all we need is what we need and it's way less than we thought, it changed everything. It's awesome.
Did you ever where did this idea come from to travel and live in an RV? Did you ever have that thought before? Or was it just like you came across it reading the blog?
Yeah, literally coming across it on the internet. I had never towed anything in my life until I towed that RV away from our house when we left.
Wow.
I had never towed a boat. I've never driven a big truck or anything like that. And we had never RV'd, never stayed in an RV, literally foreign concept.
Wow.
So we did do a trial run on our actual 10-year anniversary of August 2nd because we really wanted to leave on the 2nd, but we weren't quite done with the house and some things. And so we did like a couple of nights to kind of just figure it out. And that was a whole disaster we don't have time to get into. Like the power plug was actually broken. And so then we had no power, and like I had to rewire the power plug as soon as we arrived. But then our dog was sick, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
But basically, here's the thing. When you have a dream that big, the obstacles that fall in front of you don't seem like a big deal, even if to most people they're insane.
Mm-hmm.
We had so many obstacles on the way out the door trying to get done those 7 months and get out the door that we had friends tell us, they're like, we don't think you're supposed to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we feel like God's telling you to like not do this because of all these absolutely insane things happening to stop you from going.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just like, no, this is what we're supposed to do. And so every obstacle that came across the way, you know, discovering mold 3 weeks before we had to leave, we had to rip it out and rebuild an entire RV wall. Like,
wow.
Which usually you take in and you wait 6 months and it costs like $5-10 grand. Like, and we just did it. And, you know, my wife has amazing family. Her brother's like very, very handy and in construction and could help us whip that together. But we were like, it wasn't a, OMG, I don't know what to do. It was, how do we get from here to here? Like, how do we solve this problem? Let's reverse engineer it and make it happen.
Yeah.
And so there was, it was just, we ran across that blog about a year prior. We were like, this is really cool. This is a really fun idea. And then that just kind of sat there in our heads. And then one day it just was like,
let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. And it's amazing. Like how many situations or times that we stop doing something because of an obstacle or whatever, right? Because we let that get in our way and deter us from actually living the life that we truly want to live.
100%.
Yeah. Crazy. So let's talk about like what you're doing now. And then I want you to like, what does financial freedom mean to you?
Yeah, 100%. So what's interesting is my background is very weird. Like I don't have a traditional background. Like I community college dropout, just kind of like didn't, like no direction, didn't know what I was doing. Met my future wife, and you know, a lot of things changed. A big thing for me was I became a Christian when I was 19. So that was like a big piece of my life change. And then as far as professionally, I went to sound school. So I went to the Art Institute of Seattle, and I learned how to run a recording studio and record albums and stuff. But then it didn't pay very well, so I didn't get a job in sound. I volunteered at my church. I actually ran live sound for a venue for a while, but I ended up working at a company that installed like really high-end home theaters, you know, like the waterfront houses, $500,000 home theater type things. Yeah. So I did that, and then I ended up getting into Microsoft because my buddy worked there. And so Microsoft has 10,000 plus conference rooms and all of this equipment. So we serviced it and helped people with it, that kind of thing. Fast forward, I ramped up and learned how to do design. So I ended up designing conference rooms at Microsoft, like an AV kind of solutions architect type. And then eventually, after doing a very large project for one of those AV companies, I went to be the sales engineer for them. Okay. So totally unrelated. This is all 100% unrelated to what I do now. But what happened is before I'd gotten all these promotions, we were young and broke, and we bought a house in 2010 that was more than we could afford. We could afford it together, but we knew my wife was eventually going to be at home. Well, boom, boom, boom. Got pregnant right after we bought the house, you know? Nice. So we're like, oh, well, okay, I guess we can't count on your income, because we just knew that was going to be the case. And so I ended up getting 3 jobs. One of those jobs was being an enrolled agent. I actually studied for a year and passed all the exams and became a tax professional. And so I worked for a small CPA firm preparing taxes. At the same time, I started running a financial website because I got really into budgeting, because we had to, because we had no money. Yeah. And so I did the Dave Ramsey thing, and we learned a lot about budgeting. And so then I started helping other people do it and started coaching them through this. And I ran the website until about 2016. So for about 5 years, I was an enrolled agent and ran the financial website on the side of my IT job. And I was just really passionate about it. And then I learned a lot about financial independence and the investing thing, which again, eventually unlocked our ability to take off. I parked that website in 2016, basically gave it up. But basically when we hit the road, we did 1 year. We did a 1 year lap. We did 25 states, like 15 national parks. It was crazy. Wow. And then we're like, okay, I guess we're done. But something inside us was like, we can't go back.
Doesn't feel done. Yeah.
Like we still had some savings. We were blowing through savings, but I was like, what if I booted up my online business again? You know, I love that. Like if I could turn that into a thing, that'd be really cool. So I tried to become like some kind of Instagram influencer.
Yeah.
That failed, but my wife ran the account, and we had really good engagement and helping people just answer financial questions while we were on the road. And a recurring theme was, okay, well, what about investing? How did investing unlock financial freedom? So like, because I was really focused on budgeting, that's what I used to do.
Yeah.
But I was like, really, the thing that moved the needle was understanding how investing works,
Right.
and like demystifying all of it, because there's just so much garbage out there. 90% of it you should probably ignore.
Yeah.
And so then through that and through a couple of group coaching programs, I started to develop what now is my freedom investing program. So the idea is trying to get people to that same type of place where they've invested enough. They know exactly what their enough number is, and where then it can just carry them all the way into retirement age, and then they can pursue their passion or something else, right? Still got to put food on the table, but it just puts a lot more pressure off of people once they know where they need to get to and how it all works. But it also, like, it goes even deep. It unpacks like what investing actually is, all the types of assets out there, how to build a portfolio, asset allocation, taxes, right? All the things a financial planner would probably talk to you about, but I do it from sort of a educational and coaching role. Because I don't want to touch people's money, invest it for them, and then charge them for that, because long term that could hurt their retirement. But if they become an empowered investor and they become their own financial advisor, and then they know how to invest and build a plan, it unlocks so much more.
Yeah.
And so it took me about 5 years to build that knowledge and actually the confidence to do it myself. And then I've been doing it for quite a few years. And then I've walked people through sort of, a version of this, but it's fully, built out now. And so, I do money coaching is what I call it. I'm not a quote unquote financial advisor. Right? I don't have the letters after my name anymore. I'm not even an enrolled agent anymore, but I feel like that actually frees me up to give more direct, unbiased advice.
Yeah.
That's not heavily regulated. And it's more of like, here's what actually works in the real world. And then here's how you can apply these things and build your sort of custom financial plan. So I love doing it. And my entire goal is to just get as many people through the program as possible, to get them to the place where they can unlock different levels of freedom, because there's multiple. You don't have to just get all the way to, oh yeah, I got $1 million in the bank, or I've got, whatever. There's levels to this game. And so I walk them through those. I call them the 6 levels of financial independence. But I don't know. That's my favorite part, is when people like unlock one of those levels and they're like, dude, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you don't have to think about that anymore. It's awesome.
Right. I think it's cool too that you're empowering the people to like make their own decisions too, right? You're just educating them instead of just saying, okay, you want to retire by this age, you should invest in these accounts. Let me do that for you. Right.
Exactly.
And then they don't have any idea of like what's going on. You're just relaying information. Now you're educating them, allowing them to make the correct decisions for them.
Well, and I think any good professional should teach their clients to help them feel empowered to make informed decisions.
Sure.
When you take the information out of their hands and just say, no, I got it, they're fully dependent on you, which in some business models, like that's kind of, they're trying to do that. But I'm not saying like the financial advice industry needs to go away or whatever. I just think that there is unfortunately enough, how do I tread lightly on this? There's enough sort of pulling the wool over people's eyes and taking the power out of their hands and not doing what's necessarily best for them, even if they quote unquote are a fiduciary.
Yeah.
That word just doesn't hold a lot of weight anymore. And I've talked to former financial planners that are like, yeah, it's not designed to 100% help the client. And so I go, okay, well, what if the client learned all the things they should have learned in high school and college about finances and the way the world works and how investing actually works. And then they are now fully empowered to make those decisions themselves. And then if they do go hire a financial advisor, which is fine,
right,
they're fully informed. Like, I know a bunch about cars, not because I want to work on cars all the time, but then I can have a real, honest, good conversation with a mechanic to know that I'm getting exactly what I need. I like the research piece. I like to know what's going on so that I can have an intelligent conversation with those people. So again, they can take what they learn in the program and then just go execute that thing, and they will be 99.9% on their way to full financial independence. Doesn't mean they shouldn't consult with a financial advisor at some
Sure.
point, but I tell them in what capacity to do that, how to protect themselves, all that stuff
Mm-hmm.
too. But yeah, man, there's something for me about empowering people to make awesome decisions, because when you own it and then you do the thing, it's kind of like DIY, right? It's like when you do your own, we did a kitchen remodel. The only thing we did not do is the countertops. We had somebody come in and cut the granite and do all that.
Yeah.
But we found some old cabinets and we put those in with my brother-in-law and framed everything out. And we did the painting and the tile and like pulled new appliances in, did the plumbing. Like it was crazy, but man, I felt so amazing after it. Not just like saving a bunch of money, but looking and being like, look what we did.
Yeah, we did that.
This thing.
We did that.
We need to enjoy that.
Yeah.
So I want that same feeling for people with their money.
Yeah. That's cool. And I would agree. I think there's like not everybody wants to do that, to do their own kitchen remodel or whatever, but
Yep.
But I think it feels good, right? For the people that do want that experience and the knowledge to be able to do something like that. Like it's life-changing, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to understate the impact of knowing how to invest properly.
Which is crazy that it's not like taught to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
like why are we not learning this?
You don't want me to answer
in
that
high
why
school?
question. That gets way into conspiracy. I don't
Yeah.
want to.
We'll talk later about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not advantageous for some very large industries,
Yeah, for
including
sure.
the financial industry, for people to be fully educated on how this stuff
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier than most people think too.
Right.
It's so much simpler. A big part of it is just literally understanding the 90% of crap that you can throw away
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
understanding the 10% you need to keep.
Mm-hmm.
And then focus and consistency. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But mixing those things up can unfortunately have long-term consequences, because when we're talking about money touches every part of our life, right?
Yeah.
And money is going to affect you throughout your entire life. And so the decisions you make around money are going to be made for the next 50, 60, 70, years, and those compound. And so making the right decisions to compound for the next 50, 60, 70 years can be insane, right?
Yeah.
That exponential curve of
Yeah.
compound interest and compound growth versus, poor decisions that can compound in the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why, to me, it's like so impactful to get people. Like my focus really is on people that are professionals, anywhere from 20 to 40, that make decent money and want to make sure they're maximizing and optimizing it. Like, let me point this money in the right direction so that it becomes, right now I'm doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but eventually my money will be able to lift more than me.
Yeah.
And then eventually my money puts food on the table when I no longer can,
Mm-hmm.
until I die. That's literally how money works.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can help them grab that stream, like you're putting so much effort into college and growth and learning, and then 40 plus hours into your job for 40 years, and you're putting hundreds of thousands of hours out there to hopefully direct that money to a place that builds a level of freedom. And so not only I want to build it so that their money takes care of them forever, but they can enjoy a ton of it along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you can get your cake and eat it too,
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. So
Yeah, it reminds me of like when we talked before, like the rich dad, poor dad mindset, like the 9 to 5, and then you retire, and then you can travel and do all that stuff, right?
right.
Instead, there's another way to do that, a more enjoyable, grateful way to do that. So what does financial freedom mean to you? Like, how do you define financial freedom?
Yeah, financial freedom is a very broad term.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I said earlier, there's like kind of levels of it to me. And I guess I could just explain those levels. But if I wanted to sum it up, financial freedom is the ability to make your own decisions when it comes to money. It's a plethora, an abundance of freedom to make the decisions you want to make. It's also security.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have those two things in place, the more that you pursue the freedom to make decisions that you want to make, instead of being dictated to by your financial situation, the more freedom you have. And so like we were able to do something crazy because I understood how investing, how money worked. And so that to me was a massive unlock of financial freedom that I would never have had if I didn't know what I was doing, or if I had buried myself in debt and all these other things and I just wasn't invested, that type of thing. And so when I talk about sort of the 6 levels of financial freedom, or the 6 levels, because ultimately you want to be what's called financially independent. And what that means is you are independent of your job. You don't have to show up and go to work for money, because your money works enough for you to pay all of your needs and your wants. And so that's like the ultimate goal. And there's a big movement around retiring early. They call it the FIRE movement. So being financially independent and retired early, FIRE. And I'm not necessarily saying that's the path for everyone, because usually you have to have a decent income and save half your income or more for like 15 and 20 years.
Yeah.
And
so it's a big sacrifice to do that.
Big sacrifice for a good chunk of time, and you still have to live on that smaller amount for a longer time. There's a ton of people that's great for. It's awesome. Mine is let's have those incremental levels all the way until you become financially independent. And so really level 1 is just financial awareness. There's the start of any of my and I've done multiple types of programs, but the start of any program is I do a full financial audit, meaning people self-reflect and actually look at literally every dollar and cent that's going out the door over the last 90 days. And then they categorize it all and go, okay, here's literally where my money's been going. Here's where you can quickly look and go, okay, I've been overspending on, and usually it's the same things: subscriptions, restaurants, random shopping, Amazon.com. Like that's pretty much what it is, right? But whatever that is, you look at it and go, okay, that's not necessarily where I want my money to go. And then I have them audit every transaction and put a priority level next to it. And they go, okay, is this something that's necessary? Is this something I really, really want and I would be miserable without it? Is this something I could take or leave? And then, or is this something like, why did I spend this money?
Yeah.
And so once they go through that, I have them, again, I've got all these tools in here, but basically they can look and go, okay, here's a big chunk that I literally looked at my spending and I said to myself, or with my spouse, we said, let's drop this completely. And then they can quickly go, boom. Wow, we just saved $300-500 a month, whatever that is.
Yeah. And
now they can redirect it toward the things that are important, right? And so level 1 is just being aware of your money. Most people couldn't tell you what they spent last month.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like that's very, very normal. But once you become aware, all of a sudden your brain in the background, it's kind of like the reticular activating system thing. You start to see ways to save, or you're like, oh man, we're about to spend money on this thing that we didn't like. And so your brain goes, bad, and it redirects you to something better.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, even just in level 1 of financial awareness, you're starting to solve problems and move yourself to the right direction. Your brain is now wired to move you toward your actual financial goals.
Yeah.
And then step 2 is just having a month of expenses in the bank. Again, it seems like a very small step, but if you can get to the point where you have a month of expenses set aside, that means the day 1 of the next month, all your bills are already paid. Everything's done. And you can actually automate everything. You can move all of your bills to the front of the month, have everything paid for, and then all you have left in your budget is like the regular spending stuff.
Yeah.
And so that takes a huge weight off of people's shoulders. As I've walked people through this program, they go, oh, I don't have to think about when stuff is due and when my money's coming in or out or any of that stuff. It's just fully automated and I don't have to think about it. So that's sort of level 2 is just like, like it's no longer taking up brain space anymore. And then level 3 is like just being fully high interest debt free. And what I mean by high interest is like whatever the prevailing interest rate is right now. I think the Fed's got it up to like 5.5% or whatever.
Yeah.
Like if you're double that, it's considered high interest. So anything 10% plus, knocking those things out can free up a ton of freedom and cash flow. Because if you're in debt, basically one, you're sort of stealing from your future self. Car loans and I know there's business use cases and there's specific things around. I'm not fully dogging on those, but I'm just saying the egregious use of car loans, the $1,000 car payment, with the 2-income households, the $2,000 of car payments, along with high interest credit card debt or personal loans or financing the TV or whatever. All those things add up, and all of a sudden now your decisions are made for you. You're like, oh, we would love to go on that vacation, but I have $2,200 a month of debt servicing. That's not even my mortgage. And so when you start to pick those apart and then you go, okay, let's knock these things out one by one and take those down. And then you choose, I'm going to live a debt-free lifestyle. And again, it's a difficult choice and there are absolutely productive uses of debt. I'm not against that.
Right.
But on a personal level, if you can do that, you now have just way more freedom of choice, which again, for me, financial freedom is really just that freedom of choice.
Yeah.
So having those couple of levels in place is massive. Then we kind of leapfrog the next 3 steps. It's once you get a year of savings either in the bank or invested, there's just something about knowing that if I could find 0 way to make income for 12 months, we would still have a roof over our head, food on the table, the lights would be on. There's just something about it. Like I literally sleep better at night once I hit that point.
Yeah. And I think just saying that too, like being able to say that, like totally changes you.
Yeah. It did. And again, even if it's kind of locked away in some investment accounts, it's
right.
I don't have to go beg, borrow, and steal to make the next payment or whatever. Like that's a big freedom step.
Yeah.
And then the big one for me, and the one that to me is the biggest level of freedom, it's called Coast FI. It's again kind of defined by this whole FIRE movement. The financial independence people termed it Coast FI, meaning if I never put another penny in, I can coast into retirement. As long as I have my bills paid, no big deal.
Yeah.
I'll have enough. I like to call it cruise control, which is kind of the term that we used when we were on the road, is like, we finally saved up enough. We hit the cruise control button. We put our feet up. Now we know that we can just relax, go with the flow, and everything is taken care of. And it's just a math equation. Again, this is something I build out in my program of like financial independence and hitting that Coast FI number and your financial independence number. All that stuff's just a math equation based on safe withdrawal rates. And I'm not going to get into the super details here.
Yeah.
But the idea is there's different levels to it based on what your ultimate retirement number is. And then you just reverse engineer back. Okay, my retirement number is this. Where am I at today? And a lot of people are a lot closer than they think. A lot of people that have been put money in their 401k and getting that match for 10, 15 years, they might be there already. I've had somebody go through my program and they ran all their numbers. We did everything inside and out. And he goes, dude, I'm there. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I don't have to invest anything else. I'm like, well, what does that feel like? He's like, dude, I can like add this addition to my house and like go do some more things with my family. Cause like, he was very focused on basic. He was very frugal and all that stuff. And now he's like, it's just this crazy weight off my shoulders knowing I took care of my future self.
Yeah.
Like it's done. Even though, I gotta work and all this stuff. He's like, but it just gives me this freedom to go pursue the things that I've been kind of putting off.
Yeah. And almost and just enjoy life a little bit more.
Right.
Which is like the ultimate
and
goal.
that was the thing that allowed me to go, okay, well, we can use this home equity. And like, I'm quote unquote on paper shooting myself in the foot. Every real estate investor out there, everybody listening to this podcast that's a real estate investor goes, dude, you cooked the goose with the golden egg. Why did you do that? And I get it. On paper, that is my quote unquote worst financial decision as far as my net worth goes. But as far as life worth goes, holy crap, dude. Right. It's like infinity. You can't measure that.
No.
And so that's why my entire program leads up to that point, with the goal of them ultimately becoming the 6th level of financial independence, which is being fully independent, not having to ever answer to anybody or work ever again. Like that's the long-term goal. So that's sort of the long-winded answer of like what financial freedom means to me and like how it works practically.
Yeah. I love that. Like the first time I like heard or kind of like came across that concept of financial independence, financial freedom was I was listening to a podcast by Rob Dyrdek, and he talks about like that where his investments in real estate pay for his lifestyle. Like whatever lifestyle he wants to live covers everything. So he gets monthly money coming in from his investments, and then he can go do whatever crazy thing that he wants to do or start a new business or whatever it is, invest in this. And like, to me, like that's going to be, like when you get there, like that's the goal, right? To have that. That's
the ultimate is where your passive income pays for your lifestyle, period. End. You're done.
Yeah.
And then so I've been around this for a long enough time where I started pursuing that. I got to the point, I think, where we saved 35, maybe 40% of our income because we had a great income. And then I was burnt out, had the mental breakdown, and I'm like, man, I can't continue this for another, I think it was like 12 years I was on track to be fully financially independent. And I'm like, I can't do this. That's why I was like, can I find an early exit? Yeah. And I did. And that's what the Coast FI concept allowed me to do. But it frees me up to start a business like I did. Right. It frees me up to not have to go back to that crazy job because I got to cover all this stuff and like save so much money. It's like, I can breathe, have more flexibility. The funny thing is ultimately the business I'm building will most likely out-earn where that was going to go anyway. And while having freedom. Like I work at home with my family. This morning we went to a concert downtown in Tampa for the kids because I could. Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that from like I know that is like a very I I'm blessed to be able to do that type of thing. But understanding all of these concepts allowed me to make those types of choices,
right?
And not,
right.
Nuke my financial future while doing this. I call it YOLO with the seatbelt. Like, have fun. You only live once. Go do the thing. But like, let's make sure you got some bumper lanes in place.
Yeah,
yeah.
I like that. What is one last question here for you? But what is, like, for the people that you've worked with, like, what's one thing that people struggle with the most, or before they work with you, right? Like, one thing they have a hard time with?
Clarity. People don't know what it is they don't know about, like, where they're going. And so clarity on one, where the heck is my money even going? And when I do that first exercise, I've had people send me a message saying, dude, I want to throw up after looking at my numbers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get it, because I did the same thing to myself, and I go, and we've had seasons, like, I'm not saying that like, I'm like some budging robot. Like, I flex with life, and we've got a lot of flexibility in what's going on. And that's the name of the game. But that's clarity on like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was even happening. So it's like eye-opening. And then clarity on like, oh, investing is way simpler than I thought. And I can take these steps forward. And now I actually have sort of a roadmap, right? And that's my ultimate brand, Roadmap Money, which ties into our travels. But it's like, when you have a roadmap, you're like, oh, I know where the end destination is. And now I have the stops I want to make along the way. Those are the levels of financial independence. And then, your budget and your money plan is basically the GPS that tells you the turn-by-turn directions to get to each of those destinations. And so once I give people that clarity, they go, oh, so I just have to execute on this plan.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just do the thing. Is there room to pivot? Yeah. There's flexibility in here.
Yeah.
We build all that stuff in.
Yeah.
And so as soon as people have clarity, and I know for me as a business owner, as soon as I have clarity on something, it's just off to the races.
I was just going to say that, like, it reminds me of like operating a business, right? Like, once I have, like, if I know exactly the roadmap or the steps that I need to get there, like, I've done that the last couple of years of like, okay, here's my goal in 5 years. Like, what do I need to do that? And like, that's been a huge help as to like the day-to-day stuff. Right. And so same thing with financial independence. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to reverse engineer anything you're going after.
Right.
So you start with the end in mind, you work your way backwards, and now you have the step-by-step plan to get there. Yeah. Then you just execute.
Right.
And then there's no more decision making. It's indecision that really gets people to the place where they're like, I'm 55 and I don't really have much put away. I've had a lot of people reach out to me in that case. And like, I do the best I can, to give them some guidance, but I'm like, that's why I'm trying to reach people like slightly earlier, because the impact can be much bigger. I'm not saying that, not everybody needs help, but like, man, if you're listening to this and you're under 40, you have such an insane opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. If you can get to the place where I think it's something like $500 a month for 10 years in the right investments will get you to $100,000. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, just automate that and forget about it. In 10 years, you'll have $100,000.
Yeah.
And then that $100,000 over the next 30 years will grow to $1 million.
Yeah.
Or I think up to 1.3 million, depending on your investments.
Yeah.
Passively, if you never put another penny in.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
That is insane to think about. And those numbers don't even feel like reality, but that's just how the math works. And if you look at the historical stock market returns of the last 100 years, that's just how it works.
Yeah.
And so, it's sort of this proven simple path to get there. But the other piece is like, hey, how do I ignore all the other stuff and the temptations of, all these other distractions that want to, try to make you gamble on the stock market or get into crypto or do whatever. And I'm not saying I don't own crypto. I absolutely do. But like, there's just so much distraction out there that people go, there's too many options, indecision. I don't do anything because I don't have clarity. And then you don't get anywhere. And then 5 years down the road, you're like, man, I should do something. And then like, it just keeps going. You kick the can so far because retirement seems so far away, and then it becomes almost too late.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you doing this. I'm excited to work with you as well. I know we've talked about working together for a little bit. So I definitely think you can help impact like a lot of people that are listening to the podcast and people that you're going to come across in the future too. So I appreciate you doing what you do. And how can people get a hold of you and get more info on your course and what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. So you could just find me on all the socials and stuff. I don't do a ton on Instagram, Facebook, that kind of thing. Mostly I'm active on YouTube. So just youtube.com/@roadmapmoney. There's a little @ symbol there. Or on, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, it's @roadmapmoney. Or roadmapmoney.com is the website. And then if there are people that are interested, so my program is not really open right now. It's sort of a closed down program. But if you're interested, like, if you're like, you know what, that sounds like I kind of need that roadmap.
Yeah.
I would love that step by step. And for Jake to kind of hand walk me through some of these pieces so I have that clarity. So now I can just execute on the plan for the next 30 years and not have to worry about it. I do have an application that you can come through and we can just have a chat, right? This is a free discovery call. We get a chat and see where you're at. So if you just go to roadmapmoney.com/apply, you can just fill out that form and get connected with me. And I would love just to talk to you to figure out where your situation is, see if, you know, my program is the right solution or if I have other solutions and places to point you on and get people moving in the right direction. Because ultimately, yeah, I want to help as many people as possible. But the program is, you know, my time is very limited in the programs and it kind of closed right now. But I would, you know, for you guys that are listening here, I'd be willing to chat. So
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll link everything in the description below. So if anybody's interested, check it out. Jake, Thanks for being here.
Hey, appreciate you having me, Donnie.